Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Cibola Burn by James S.A. Corey. This is yet another book in the Expanse series. And as I looked at some of the reviews on YouTube, I'm so impressed by the people who've managed to review not just every book in the series, but every novella. I'm someone who came to the books through the television series. So the television series to me was compelling in a number of ways and got me going into the books. And this book in particular is one of my more favorite ones. I'm 6 books in. Yes, I think I'm 6 books into the Expanse series. So this is book 4, so I'm a couple books ahead of where this book is. And I'm in the middle of the Dune series at the moment, as well as Song of Ice and Fire, the Foundation series, Robot series. There's a bunch of different series that I'm slowly making my way through, but I think that's the wonderful part of it. You can choose to binge if you want. All the books, all 9 of the books are out now, and I think part of me wanted to get closer to having this series done before the last book was released. I think it was last year, but that's okay. I've just not watched the most recent season of the television series because it was one book ahead. I'm in the middle of that book now. I'm almost done with it. But anyway, all of that aside, let's talk about this book because that's what this review is about. So we're more than halfway. Somewhat more than halfway through. If you're looking at novellas, it's a 9-book series. This is book 4, but there's other novellas that are available for you to build this out. But as far as the story goes, I feel that we're more than halfway through because we've established that there are these beings that have built these ring gates, and the destabilization of the solar system has begun because the people on Mars who are hoping to terraform another world have found a bunch of worlds out there that appear to be friendly to Earth life. Why spend generations terraforming something when you can go out and get it yourself? But at the heart of this book is one theme that The Expanse deals with over all the books, but I suppose this is the book that is dedicated to this theme, and it's the theme of immigration, right? So if I think about the story this particular book presents, you have a world in which a group of settlers, people from the ring, manage to get to this world first, land a ship, stake a claim, start mining lithium, and you can sell lithium for a lot of money in the solar system. And they get there before the UN-backed corporation with its security forces land to make a claim that these people are squatters. There's an incident with the landing party where people are killed, supplies are lost, and of course there's a situation which, once again, only James Holden and the crew of the Rocinante can arbitrate. And sure, I accept that frame. I have a lot of love for the Rocinante and Holden, but I think this question of where is someone from and when do you get to be from someplace is a fascinating one. So nobody lived on this planet for a long time. We know that the original engineers of the ring gates modified this planet. They still have structures there which haven't been touched in a very long time. And you have people who are claiming to be, and you even have the dialogue of the people who say, we're going to be from here. We're going to establish this is our home now. So what does that mean? What does that mean to say that some place is your home? Is that enough? Is it enough to claim that some place is your home, or are you at the mercy of giant transnational corporations and governments that tell you, yeah, I know that you think that you live here. However, this has already been sought out far above your pay grade, and you're wrong. Now, obviously, as with all science fiction, they're using a future frame and a larger context to deal with specific issues of today. And I think that's clearly what's being dealt with in this book is the question of immigration. Where are people from? How long does it take before you're there? And I would argue the question is the same in other series as well. So I was discussing Dune with a friend the other day, and the question was, well, in one of the books, Dune is starting to turn back into a different planet, but it wasn't always a desert, and the worms didn't always live there, but now everyone associates it with that. Same thing with tomatoes. Tomatoes are not native to Italy. They're native to the New World, but now everybody associates tomatoes with Italy. Why? Well, that's how it is now. So we have to accept that things do change and that where things are from, quote unquote, originally, aren't necessarily where they end up positioning, not just in people's minds, but in reality. There are tomatoes that are growing in Italy now, obviously. Just because they didn't originally grow in Italy doesn't mean that they can't grow well there. So I think that the book, not only in its ending, but in its arguments, doesn't give us a clear answer to this because it's a complicated question. Like the famous answer of every accountant to a complicated question you might pose to him or her is, it depends. And here I think that's the function of any worthy book that's dealing with a complicated issue, is contributing more nuance, more thought, and helping people to see the other sides of the issue. That even though, let's say, you might be cheering for the settlers here, you might have some sympathies for, we're inside one of the characters, which we really get to know about, Havelock. He's one of the security guards attached to the corporation that's there. We get to see he's, quote unquote, just doing his job, but he at some point has to make a decision about who he's backing. And the fact that everyone else in the solar system is watching this test case. Well, what's going to happen when a larger organization has to deal with bad press? And I would say that we actually have a real-world example of what's being proposed in Cibola Burn in the case of the Chagosian Islands. For those of you who don't know, I would urge you to look it up. Professor James Kerr-Lindsay has a couple excellent videos on this if you want to look up the Chagos Islands. But they were originally attached to Mauritius, but in the process of decolonization, it became clear to the British and later the Americans that this was a wonderful strategic lily pad for incursion into the Middle East, and they evicted all of the residents of the island of Diego Garcia, native Chagosians, and built a military base there. They actually just took over an island and kicked off everybody who was from there. The UN has condemned this action, and almost all the allies of Britain and the United States abstained, which I think also shows the waning soft power of the US and Britain, that they didn't have their allies come out on their side. The abstention, I think, is effectively indicating we would vote against this if we weren't your allies and if you weren't going to punish us for it. But the British and the Americans, despite international condemnation, despite clear wrongdoing by evicting the lawful and peaceful residents of an island, continue to surface what we famously read, I think it's in Herodotus, but the story between the Melians and the Athenians, maybe it's Thucydides, but the famous quote that comes out of that is, the strong do as they will, and the weak suffer what they must. And that is the state of our world. It's the state of the Chagos Islands at the moment. The base of Diego Garcia is not anywhere close to being closed. The U.S. and Britain are nowhere close to admitting wrongdoing in this case. But it's not just science fiction sometimes. In fact, I would argue it's really never science fiction. Science fiction is always bringing discussion of relevant ideas in our world to our face by putting it in the future so that it's not so obvious. And when it's not so obvious, people have their guard down and they're willing to really consider all of the arguments and all of the sides of a question, which I think we can be blinded by when we come with our narratives and we come with our biases. And so, if nothing else, science fiction is able to help us at times overcome our biases. So, I continue to recommend The Expanse in general. I have an asterisk, which I'll probably get to when I review the last book in the series, which is a particular social agenda that the authors are blatantly pushing which contribute in no way to the narrative. But I don't want that really to take away from my review of this book, in part because it's not so much an aspect of this book, but because despite this glaring, unnecessary social engineering play of the authors into the Expanse series as a whole, the impact and power of this book and of this particular story within the Expanse universe is well worth reading, and I heartily recommend it. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, there's a link to the bookshop link in the description below. You can also, while you're down there, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see other reviews. I'll put a link down there to my one of my very earliest videos, actually, which I reviewed Leviathan Wakes and the Expanse series in general. So it's more of a introduction to the whole series. And if you'd like to support reviews like this, and if you'd like to see other reviews of Expanse works, feel free to put that in the comments. But if you'd like to support this work in general, there's a link to the Patreon, which you can click through and pledge to support this work. Until next time, enjoy your reading.